Yeah.
So the fact that they destroyed all that data.
Yeah, it speaks to the cover up of a crime. I just want to give people sort of my top 5 anomalies that make me believe it's highly unlikely that men were sent to the moon. And in fact, this was a production sold to the American people and sold to the global population as massive propaganda. Here's the first one, the Van Allen radiation belts. And number 2, Bart, landing the lunar module.
Someone apparently forgot to create a burn crater underneath the lunar module's 10,000-pound thrust engine, despite the fact that during ground tests there was a real concern for the vehicle falling into the hole the engine created as it descended. Not even one speck of moon dust on the landing pod. As a result, all subsequent flights had to have the same discrepancy, which was explained away by the effect of no atmosphere.
And they were never able to land it successfully in tests on Earth. Number 3, the audacity of telling us they brought a rover, a dune buggy, to the moon. I mean, are you serious? They had this thing down so perfectly well, and it was so easy and so risk-free that they brought the extra added weight of a dune buggy so they could tool around on the moon. It's absolutely preposterous.
The cost of the 3 moon rovers in 21st century currency? Nearly $60 million each, though they had fewer parts than a Jeep. Where was all this money going?
Number 4, background mountains in many of these pictures are identical, and it's impossible for them to be identical. Here's one with the lunar module. And then here's the same mountain shown with no lunar module. And number 5, the Apollo 11 post-moon landing conference with Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, and Neil Armstrong, where it feels a lot more like a funeral than a hero's welcoming of 3 men that just landed on the moon.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Some people say it's hard to believe that the moon landings were faked. I say it's hard to believe that they were real. What NASA is claiming is that they went 1,000 times farther than they can go today with 50-year-older technology on the very first attempt with 1/millionth the computing power in all of NASA than is in a cell phone. All the proof that you need that the moon landings are fake is in this one picture. In sunlight, shadows will always run parallel with one another. This is because the sun is about 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth, and it casts shadows in the same direction over an entire continent. So you'll see in sunlight, shadows always run parallel and never intersect. Here's a picture which the federal government claims was taken on the moon. The astronaut shadow runs at 12 o'clock, and this rock, only about 5 feet away, the shadow runs at 9 o'clock. This is a 90-degree difference from objects 5 feet apart from one another. This proves that this was taken on Earth with an electrical light inside of a television studio. This is all the proof that you need that the moon landings were fake. If Toyota said that they made a car 50 years ago that could go 50,000 miles on a gallon of gasoline, and yet today their best car could only go 50 miles per gallon, or 1,000th the distance, wouldn't the fraud of the previous claim be obvious? And yet this is exactly the moon landing fraud, and yet people don't see it because of their emotional attachment to it. They're claiming they went 1,000 times farther 50 years ago than they can go today with 50-year-older technology. That doesn't make any sense. It's the only time in history that a technological achievement like the automobile or the airplane or nuclear power, that no nation on Earth could repeat it 50 years later, when in fact it should be 100 times greater 50 years later. If they could go to the moon with 1960s technology, men would be in another solar system by now. Men would have walked on Mars 10 years later, 40 years ago, which never happened. And there would be bases on the moon there today, of which there are none. It's the only time in the history of the world that technology that cost $175 billion was deliberately destroyed afterwards. Would Bill Gates spend $175 billion to make the first computer and then when he was done, throw it and the schematics in the trash? But that's what NASA claims that they did.